All right, so I'm recording now. So the text. So what did we say? We watched this video, right? And what he's saying, he says good evening. Why is he saying good evening? Because it's hell. Evening and night, especially midnight, comes with hell, right? So evening equals, no, hell equals evening, right? It's obvious. Yeah, darkness, this sort of, that spell of horror, something unpleasant, Anyway, so, and I am the devil, right? That's funny because he doesn't look like one, but I am the devil. And he says, and my name is Toby. And he says Toby because it's like from nowhere. What's the purpose? As we said, communication is about manipulating people, which is achieving your goals. What's his goal? To be friendly. What's his goal? Exactly. You think of him as a devil, but actually he's an actor. Right? So as an actor, a comedy sketch guy, he actually wants to make people laugh. And we're talking about what is text, right? And we're using this as a great example of actually, and mind you, I didn't invent this way of explaining to you text. What happened is that I read Anne Friedman. I'm not sure whether I attached Friedman or not to your modules, but anyway, it's a semiotician. She's now a professor in Melbourne, and I'm reading her stuff. I actually know she only needs to say a word, and I know exactly where she's going, and I can actually work in literacy with those ideas. Anyway, so he wants to make people laugh. So what he's saying, he's a devil. So devil, what comes with devil? Lucifer, I don't know, whatever names, whatever these evil names. He doesn't say he's a Lucifer because nobody would they would laugh, but not really. But when he says, I am Toby, how do you spell Toby? Y, all right. I-E is always with a girl, I think. All right, so my name is Toby. Okay, so what is it? It's out of nowhere. There's a surprise, right? One of the things, I mean, when people tickle very often, people say when you tickle people, that's because people say that laughter is actually an outcome of surprise very often. And how do you create a surprise? By bringing something out of nowhere. Very contrasting. So what is he contrasting? Devil, which is a sort of biblical figure with all the horror and everything, you die and he will eat you. And what's Toby? What references come with Toby? Hey? Toby is a teddy bear? I don't know. So cute. So cute. What else? Well, Mr. Bean is a series, right? Here he's not Mr. Bean. Here he is just simply a comedian, and he's creating a sketch. So with Toby, what comes with Toby? Everyday person. Exactly. That's great. Everyday person. What else comes with Toby? I mean, I can think of Toby like of the 4-year-old boy that I know. Is it kind of someone small? Someone you can relate to. That's so funny. Right? You can see now what we're learning is what meaning is, right? People say, people who don't read Latour and semioticians, they say meaning is that there's a meaning of a table or of a something, right? Meaning is not that. Meaning is the kinds of references you put underneath. So meaning is it's not nothing solid. It's the things you draw on, the things you bring in. So some people who have less training, maybe in comedy sketch, like my mother, especially in English, she wouldn't know that Toby is cute. She wouldn't know that Toby is someone, a name that someone you relate to. She wouldn't know it's like an everyday person. She has no idea. So if he says my name is Toby, my mother says as good as any other name, right? She just wouldn't laugh because she doesn't have all that past to draw on. And that's so important because when you have children from different cultures, right, in your classroom, and when you read the book to them, and when they have nothing to draw on, and say that you have a 5-year-old, they already have rich frames of references. But if you teach in all the classrooms, and I'm mentioning this because very often I have not paid enough attention to all the classrooms, only gave usually last lecture in the whole 12 lectures how to actually work with literacy in all the levels. because we are so preoccupied with early childhood. But that's what it is. There is no meaning. What there is, that everything links to something else. All we have is networks. Remember, the brain is just networks. So what's Toby activating in the audience? Who are, who actually were raised in Australia in one language or in many languages, but basically I have a rich enough past to read Toby in a way that makes us laugh. I mean, if unlikely that Professor Kell would come here and say, my name is Toby. I don't know, what's the formal name? Is it just diminutive, or is there a formal? It's just it, right? It's just, nobody uses it, probably. I don't know. So it's cute. Maybe it's a teddy bear's name. I don't know enough English to relate to. And that's how you actually test whether someone is a second language speaker, because they actually don't have that. They might actually speak with no accent, and they may fool you because they can talk about things they control. But once you dig into their past, like with Toby, you will know, because they don't have it. And that's the difference very often on what they call on scales for proficiency for non-native speakers, is exactly that. What richness, what cultural richness, that's what we were talking about last week. What cultural richness are the students bringing in with them? And if they don't have, and you have to be aware they won't, we actually have to bring it in. Right? And that's what people very often are against with when it comes to NAPLAN. They say you want children to actually have these references. But 50% of children in Darwin, or more or less take, 10% left and right, will be from non-English speaking backgrounds. And it's not that they're uncultivated, they just have different frames of reference. So when he says, my name is Toby, and I am the devil, right? So he already knows people will laugh. So what is he doing next? He says, we keep things here informal. Why is he saying informal? Why is he saying anyway, so why is he now, he says, my name is Toby, so my friends who are obviously not native English speakers, I don't know, I'm just making it up, that you are international students, it's getting hard now. That analysis is getting hard, right? Because, so if he says, my name is Toby, and he says, we keep things here informal, why is he saying that? Yes, but that doesn't make people laugh. This is not a meditation session. He doesn't do it to make them feel relaxed or say, but this is all relaxed here. That's Australian culture, but this is not. Remember all the time. Remember, every time someone opens their mouth, they have a reason. They manipulate. Right? Use that word, manipulate. When you say to your lover, I love you, why do you say that? Because you want them to feel something. You use these words to relate together, to evoke emotions and so on. So by using the word manipulate, I'm thinking about this word in the highest level of abstraction. I don't think negatively. Just like the word power, it's not always about dominating, it's about connecting. Okay, so remember, who is he? A comedy guy, right? An actor. He wants to make people laugh all the time. You have to think, if he's creating a text and we're analyzing a text, you've got to keep it in mind who's talking. It's a comedian. So if a comedian is talking and he says, my name is Toby, and we like to keep things here informal. Why is he saying informal? Because he's milking. People are already laughing at Toby because Toby is cute, someone you relate to. It's like there's Anna and Ania, there's Susan and Susie, so Toby, and well, it has an ending which is a diminutive ending. It's how you make in English things smaller. I don't know whether in Polish that would work, I'm not sure, because in Polish we make things smaller all the time. We never talk about the table, we always talk about the little table. We diminutize almost everything in Polish. So that's just a cultural vector. That's what we do most of the time, But in English, if you say the Y at the end means informal, right? Can you think of other words where you actually put the Y at the end with names? Any other names? What's your name? What's your name? Kate, KT, exactly. Whatever. So this kind of, that's a diminutization. That's making things cute, making them informal. So the name, he doesn't say I am Tobias, as you said, he says I am Toby. So he is milking that contrast between devil and Toby, because he has already everyone laughing, so he's milking it. And what he's saying, we like keeping things here informal. So everybody's already laughing at Toby, right? Now they are dying of laughter. And then what he's doing next, as well as infernal, right? So it's even funnier. I mean, for English, I don't know, guys, over you actually are with me, but so informal, because it's Toby and it doesn't go with devil. He comes back to the devil reference, infernal, but it's very funny because there's a linguistic play here. Informal as well as infernal. So anyway, what do you think is the point I want to make about the text? That's just so abstract that I don't really know how to work with it. Okay, every definition, and that's the thing that I teach from undergraduate to postgraduate, and very often it gets lost somehow. Every definition has to be explanatory about the process. It has to come up with words or with the process that you can work with it. Otherwise, you can't work with that definition. So we're looking at some sort of qualities of text. So it's strategic, right? Because we open our mouth to actually have an impact. You make choices of the meaning-making systems, right? Remember how we're talking about diversity of meaning-making systems? You have less of them when you're 5, you have more of them when you're 50. So you grow as you go. Choices in meaning-making systems. My handwriting is just magnificent. After 20 or so years, or 30, I can't remember anymore, of typing. Okay. So what's the point that I'm making here with Mr. Bean, here in this joke, in this comedy sketch? What's the point that I'm really, really making about text?
Communication skills with other people. This is just one example of what he's using.
Yes, but how would you apply it to literacy? You have to give me a definition that you can actually work with it in classroom.
He's manipulating his audience to...
I'll ask.
Yeah, he's manipulating his audience to have an impact and to have a reaction.
And what does this manipulation involve? Laughing is an outcome. What is he doing?
Milking it.
You can't milk something that doesn't exist. So what is he actually manifesting? What is he creating? Present. What is he actually doing? Presentation, yes, well, anybody can present without nobody laughing. There are people who actually can't do comedy sketches. My mother is really good at comedy sketches. My mother always says, Ania, everything that is stupid stick to my brain. Anything that is smart doesn't. But literally, my mother can stand in front of people for days and just not close her mouth and just go on with jokes and anything, just honestly, like one thing generates another and another. So she's funny, but put me there and I just can't do it. My life is different. I am different. I'm more like my father in that way. So what is he doing as he's manipulating?
He's also assuming an audience in order to...
What is he doing?
Creating a story.
I mean, what is he doing? How hard can it be? Imagine if you were to teach it. If you teach children to produce a text, if you teach children to read, which will be your assignment too, so I'm kind of making connections between the two now. If you teach children to read, if you teach children to understand, hey? Well, he's not making them think, he's making them laugh. What is he actually doing? Hey? No. How? How is he engaging them? Hey? Oh my goodness, exactly. But choose a different word. He says he uses words. That's the key. Build it up, because this is only half a truth. He's using words, but this is not the best. This is not how I would want to say it in the assignment. He doesn't use words. What is he doing? He uses words, but a better verb. Can we think of a better verb? He's what? Man, choosing. He's consciously choosing words for effect, right? He is choosing or selecting, making conscious decisions what will go next. That's why some people can do it and some people can't, right? So choosing words for the best or best impact. I'll give you an example. And because I come from a second language sort of culture, I can do that. But very often people say, do not ask a person from Eastern Europe how they are, because they will tell you. Right? Because in Polish and many languages of that side of Europe, when we're learning English, we translate how are you into how are you, as opposed to hi. Some person who wrote those stupid textbooks for learning English translated how are you as how are you, as opposed how are you is only hi. That's how it should be translated, right? But because someone translated it badly, if you ask an Eastern European person how they are, they'll say to you, and we'll go on and on and on. Well, basically, the way they choose, the references on which they draw. So choosing the words for the best impact. But if he was giving this sketch, maybe, I'm not sure because I didn't think about it, in some other country, let's assume Poland, I'm not sure because I didn't think about it, because I've been in Australia for 30 years, so I can't even think even that way, because I'm not a translator. I just basically work in English. But maybe the same connotations wouldn't work. That's why it was so hard for us what Toby comes with. Toby is not a word. Well, it is a word, but it doesn't have a meaning. It comes with the frames of references you have acquired through your life in Australia, through reading things, through talking to people, so you have someone to relate to, right? And it's not the devil that you want to relate to, but you can see when he comes up with Toby, and you think that's the name that symbolizes someone to relate to. That's funny. And if you watch it further, he's got in the hell all the French and all the English, and all the lawyers. So he comes up with all the frames of reference that in normal situations, we say all the lawyers are bad, all the French and Germans are just always at war with one another. Let's put them all in hell once for all, and so on. But you need to know these things to actually get the joke. So he chooses words with a particular audience in mind. So if you meet a Polish person, don't say how are you, say hi. If you have enough of intercultural sensitivity, right? Because unless you want to have a good time with that person, I'm sure that a lot of people from Eastern Europe have gotten it, but that was the joke in the past, and it actually was quite real. I have a friend who said to me, she was from China, I think. I was running a workshop for teaching Mandarin teachers how to teach Mandarin. Chinese teachers how to teach Mandarin in Australia. And she said, one day her lecturer said, what was it? I'll see you later, or I'll see you soon, I'll talk to you soon. She stood there for 2 hours in front of his office. Huh? It's not even literally, it's just, you can call it literally, yeah. Because she drew on different frames of reference. Right? So in English, in Australia, it is, I don't know about the UK, but talk to you soon means just bye. But you don't want to you don't want to actually act in a very abrupt way. That's what I say to my students, and I wish I could actually learn that lesson myself when I submitted a publication somewhere to some journal, and I said there is no intellectual framework behind the way we do this graduate attribute classification. Obviously, I got comments like, "What are you talking about?" Right? Because I should have used softer words. So use softer words, and in English, you soften. You soften. There's a tendency, like in Polish, you use the diminutives. In English, you soften it very often. That's another way of softening. So talk to you soon. It's not like bye. Right? Bye is a cut. That not always, obviously. If you say to a friend, bye, that's why you do that, because you don't want to cut it. That's why you sing it and all of that. All right. So text is not just, things we memorize with rules. What text is a particular genre. That's true. Say comedy sketch is a genre. But you can't produce a comedy sketch unless you actually know what you have to do within any genre. Any genre. And what you do within any genre, you make conscious selections of words. That's not my computer, is it? No. You can have a heart attack when you run a computer on batteries. Anyway, so you make conscious selections of words. How do you do that? What is it that you need to know? No, well, the genre of comedy sketch is about making people laugh. Well, the way you make people laugh is you choose appropriate words. How do you know what how do you make these selections? Right, so you have to know you've got to know more or less the culture of the audience, right? The kind of cultural capital of the audience, right? Well, the way you actually will make selections, those selections, it has to be understood. There has to be a likelihood to be understood. That's true. So what does that mean? I'm going to pick up on people who talk less. You. So how do you make this cultural? So what does this cultural capital here in terms of a comedy sketch mean? What does it mean, the cultural capital? So he has to make selections. He makes selections by assuming a specific cultural capital of his audience. What does that mean? Right, so he has to have an idea what to expect. Exactly, how does he do that? Remember, you have to give me a definition that you can actually apply in your classroom. That's what I'm interested in. I don't actually want an answer. I actually want to know what you'll be doing in classroom. So he has to make selections. These selections will be culturally informed. What does that mean? Well, there's no such a thing like culture, but yes. And what does it mean? What is a culture? What is culture? Yeah?
I was thinking, and then maybe he would have to, the common ground of what the words mean.
Well, but I just said before, about half an hour ago, that words don't mean.
No, in the same, country kind of thing.
The words don't mean anything. Just take it for granted, okay? Just take it on the belief. I cannot give you a lesson in semiotics more than I have. And I have actually given you a lesson in semiotics, but somehow got lost because we get so much ingrained in the idea that words have meaning that to divorce yourself from this, it's going to take a century and a half. So I expect that you will come back to words having meaning. So that's good. Thank you for that, because I wanted to hear it. Okay, so what's culture? Words don't have meaning. What do words have? Words have nothing. Where's the knowledge living? Where's the knowledge living? In the grass? In people. right? So the culture lives in people, right? So the words will have meaning where? Who generates the meaning? The people generate the meaning. What is it that he needs to know? How do words mean? People generate meaning on the basis of, and what does that mean? And what does that mean? Do you see how I have to beat out the school out of you? Every prac you ever had, I'm just basically turning it back, turning the clock back, being more precise. These are loose words. We actually need to be very, very precise, because unless we know what are the tools which we have as teachers, we can't apply them. Okay, so he's choosing words. What exactly is he doing? How is he choosing? How is he making these selections? By knowing the cultural capital of his audience. That's great. And what does that mean? The likelihood of what? Yes, he has to guess. He has to guess what will make people laugh. So he makes selections of words because he actually guesses or has an idea, assumes particular cultural capital of his people, of his audience. And what does that mean? He will know when he says a particular word, how people will understand that. What does that mean? Don't write it down. That was still stupid. Still not there. I'm just pushing you a little bit. Pardon me? And what does that mean? What is meaning again? Once again. What is meaning? Yeah. What is meaning? What did I say half an hour ago what the meaning was? It's your frame of reference. So he makes selections of words by knowing the cultural capital, which means he makes guesses about the kinds of frames of reference. People are likely to draw on when they hear the word Toby in comparison with the word devil. Now, if you want the golden book of rules in literacy, this is today. Everything else is how to work with these tools. This is it. Frames of references is the word that I have, I've been using. I always, because I'm a second language speaker, I couldn't find these words when I was writing my PhD. And I just couldn't find it. And everybody was talking about something, and then someone said it. And I thought, oh my God. And there are a couple of phrases that I have gotten from different academics or different people or whatever that I'm actually driving my whole academic career on. And that's one of them. Frames of reference. So Toby doesn't have a meaning, but when you hear Toby, you go Toby. My mother goes Toby like, what's that, Ania? And some of us are dying of laughter, right? Because Toby means someone you relate to. So, right? So he's making fun out of the word devil, hell, and Toby. They just don't go together. So if you were to teach someone comedy sketch, that's what you actually want them to do. Look for words that are in such sharp contrast, so unexpected together, that everybody dies of laughter. But when you teach persuasive text, you want the opposite, total opposite. You want words so commonly stuck together that even when they don't make sense, people don't see it, because they so often have been repeated that people are likely to actually see it as connected. So if you want to do a persuasive text, which is to persuade, don't necessarily tell the truth, right? But like an advertisement, you want to actually persuade people to buy your product. You use whatever it takes, whatever connections are ingrained in people's bodies, literally. So you use as many things that actually go together. The connections, right? So when the person talks about the milk, they talk about, and they want to flog the milk, they come up what works with milk, everything that comes with milk. If you want to sell milk, right? So you got these healthy bones. Nobody knows whether after 30, if you drink milk, is actually going into your bones. It's probably going into your calcification of your arteries or something. But anyway, who cares, right? You want to flog the milk. You don't talk about truth. You just want to flog milk. So you come with every connection possible, multisensory connections in anything, in a persuasive text. But in the comedy sketch, you do the opposite. So what works for one genre doesn't work for another. And why is it good to teach both? Because kids then understand what connections mean. Because when you disconnect, it's no longer connected. So students learn by contrasting. So in a comedy sketch, you want these surprises. Informal and infernal, do they go together? What he uses now is the discourse of persuasion, the connection, right? The INF, informal, infernal. So you kind of connect with it because you think it's an argument. Now your body is reacting and goes together. You group it. And then he surprises you with the informal and infernal, right? Informal and infernal is actually funny together. So first you get sort of like prepared for connection, which is persuasive, and then he surprises you. Actually, they disconnected, right? So he prepares you for a surprise, informal, and then he says inf. So your body is all prepared. It starts firing here for connected thing, like for a persuasive, and then he disrupts it and he says infernal. You can see what's happening? So, and this is just Ania Lian's take on this comedy sketch. I'm sure that someone else would produce even more out of it, right? Would actually see in one sentence actually much more happening than I can dig out of it, because I don't do these things. All I use this for is to show you that when you actually teach people, you actually understand what your tools are. So if you were, so now let's actually connect it together. If you were to, if your goal is to make sure that your children select the right words, right, when they produce text. So on the one hand, someone said they have to know they have to know how the genre flows. What is the ceremony of the genre? What is the genre actually doing, right? So the genre is not necessarily the rules of it, as much as it is first, we need to actually know what the genre is doing. So the purpose of genre. And then there will be tools of genre. So everything is tools. We are a tool maker and we produce tools. Everything is tools. And what you do, you make these tools available to students. I'm running with it a little bit because it's not necessarily the point of that I really want to carry on with today. But if you want children to make the right selections, what you want them is to actually use the words that draw on appropriate frames of reference according to the purpose. So whether it is to make people laugh, or whether it's to make people feel warm, whether it is to make people feel sad, or whether it is to create some sort of rhythm, whatever effect you want, you've got to know. Children have to know the frames of references, which actually are underneath those words, underneath those selections. Now, how would you do it in classroom? So what I get in assignments from students, especially students who actually just don't necessarily engage sufficiently in the unit, because I believe that I kill it as from lesson 1, but I'm not sure if it actually comes across. So I'm just trying to make it actually even stronger. What I get is the teacher comes to classroom with what I actually love laughing at, which is the big book, because really when you come from a Christian culture, it always takes you back to the culture of teaching literacy, when the literacy was actually meaning to understand the Bible, right? And you always had the teacher who was actually telling you how you should understand. And it had nothing to do about understanding. It had everything to do with producing particular behaviors. So when we talk about words like understanding, you've got to realize that every word is used to manipulate. So very often it wasn't about understanding the Bible. It was really about manipulating people to a particular behavior. So how many of you have been ever in a Christian mass? In a Catholic, I can't speak of any other because I come from a Catholic country. So I went to a mass and I have some experiences. How many actually children who are in the mass actually understand the mass? What Pierre Bourdieu would say, the sociologist, he would say, you don't understand it, you behave appropriately. That's two different things. You understand how to behave. So very often this teaching to the big book or to the Bible was actually to actually generate appropriate behaviors, not necessarily understand, in a way that we draw on diversity of frames of reference. So what happens, there are 5 million strategies that people use to understand this book. Actually gets worse. Very often the teacher reads the book and then they move on and go to a travel agency. It's even worse, right? It's an excuse for some activity. It has nothing to do with actually using the text for anything. So culture is absolutely gone. The teacher comes in front up with the book, teacher reads the book to the children are just sitting there. And I don't know, have you ever been a child before? Have you ever had a moment when you just sort of weren't there? Or have you had friends who weren't there and you might have personally been there, but you actually understood why your friends were not? I don't know. I always understood. I always understood why I was in and why they were out. And I never thought that they were bad. Most of my friends were actually, hard to say. Well, let's say that in the particular situation, they probably were the worst students. But then when the teachers change or conditions change, I actually learned chemistry from a girl who, in a sense, everybody just discounted, right? But she got it because we had this guy who had a PhD who was teaching out of his head. He was totally, eccentric. But he got his chemistry. He really understood it, and she got it. And I just went to her house one day, and she helped me. So always felt for my peers. I always knew why they weren't in, why they weren't there. They weren't there because it was boring. I was there, very often I was there because I felt sorry for the teacher. There were moments where I just paid attention because I felt sorry for the woman because the whole class was in disarray. And she just went on with her lesson. I was the only one paying attention, right? Point is, that's not engaging. That's actually dominating the classroom. That's a situation where you actually use your own power. And that's all right. I don't mind it. Maybe, whatever. But the point is, I be aware of it. And if you do it day in and day out, then be aware of it. Because at the end of the day, we are the ones who make them or break them, right? So I don't know, up to you. So we talk about text as choosing words, and we do that by applying criteria, cultural criteria. So frames of reference. How will you teach your children, about the meaning of words or how to choose the right words? How will you do that?
You just have to know those children that you're teaching and know the words that you're really saying.
Do you know,
Will they really relate?
everybody agrees, or what do you think? You just have to know your children and see whether they will. I love your answers because I need those answers. I need those answers to come in. And I need to put them into conversation. We could have a little task and all of us think about it, but maybe not at this very second. We have 6 minutes before you get tired. Pardon?
How you have incentive, like I want to use that because I know.
Incentive. Okay, I want to use this word. Well, my Master of Education student yesterday, when we were doing the data analysis, he was calling, so, we have a quote of a person from his interview, and now we have to give it a title. So that a person who actually looks at his data can understand it at one glance, as opposed to read every quote. And he comes up with words that don't exist in English. I mean, they do, but that means nothing. He just made them up. Firstly, because There's one reason. Why do you think he's doing research in policy or how universities actually make sure that we teach you things that actually generate jobs at the end of the day. And you may not actually get a job as a teacher, but the skills I'm teaching you are actually high abstract level skills. So I don't just teach you in order so that you go to school and just run the lesson. It also teaches you other things and it gives you lots of tools. So you can actually then go on with your PD, you can go on with your postgraduate courses, you can be a leader in the community, you can do lots of things. So you can imagine that if there are policy strategies for that, there will be a vocabulary for that. Had he had thorough reading in that, he would have known what to use, right? But maybe because he's from overseas, and maybe because, me, I have been reading this for years. Whereas you only have so many years to do your master's. So it's not possible, maybe, for a foreign per student to acquire that vocabulary. So basically what he was shoving here, I knew what he was saying, but nobody would relate. They were not drawing on the right frame. He was not drawing on the right frames of reference. The words might have been okay, but it's not how we talk about it. It's not how we talk about it. This is not how you say it, right? So there's not how you talk about it. So there are particular ways of saying it. So he had an incentive, but it wasn't good enough. Because his incentive was drawing on his country and how he understood English to work. But English has been long enough at work that we actually have particular phrases for particular objectives. He wasn't using them. And that's another thing that comes with languages. It's actually have to know the language of a particular context. So choosing words which draw on appropriate frames of reference. So the words have to be right, and they also have to draw appropriate frames of references. So his policy language was not there, right? It was not there. Okay, so how do we teach it? How would you teach people when the guy says, and I am the devil, and my name is Toby? How would you teach that? Toby is double B or single B? I have no idea. Okay, that's what English people do. Explain. The curriculum has nothing else to propose but present and explain. Present and explain. Has anyone ever explained to you how to build a rocket and you just went on and built it?
No, it's about putting in context.
But it is in context, and some people were not laughing. But it was in context. In fact, we worked very hard to actually get the idea why he said devil and Toby at the same time. Some of us native speakers of English, we worked very hard to get it. We laughed, but when asked why, because it's in our bones, right? We know to laugh. But now explaining it, well, explaining, I don't have a problem with it, but how do you explain? Because the thing is, I wrote my PhD on it, so that word explain, and I get freckles everywhere. But explain is good. It's good, except how. Right? Everything is about the how. Because remember, when you explain, you're producing an answer, right? Some form of answer, even if it is in the form of question. You're producing some response. That response is generated by your understanding what the problem is, but not what the student understands as a problem. So that's the problem with explanation. Yeah, it's good to explain if you know what you're actually doing. It has to be put a bit more in context of pedagogy. Explanation alone will not do, because you always produce it in response to what you as a teacher perceive as a problem. But you're 30, 40, 50. Your world is somewhere else. You don't think like a 5-year-old. Right? So that's very interesting. How would we make it? Okay, Ania, we will give it to you. Okay, we hate you, so we will give it to you. We'll make it for them explanatory. Right? We do something so that they actually explain it to themselves. So you do something that it's clear to them. So you have to do something that they understand. Explanation is a strategy. It's okay, I'm happy with it. But how do you make him feel Toby? Because Toby is nothing to be explained about Toby. You have to feel Toby. You've got to see Toby. You have to know how Toby feels like, right? Because laughter and reasoning and thinking is really, as neuroscience will say, is largely about emotions. If you have no emotions, your decisions are like if you don't, like some people who have problems with actually linking their actions with emotions because of injuries in the brain, they are very likely to make decisions which are counteractive to their own interest. They just can't connect things to the core of their ego, their personality, their self. They just can't make these connections. So they talk like I talk, like, it sounds logical, sounds whatever, but the decisions are not working for them. You need to feel Toby. How do you make a person who is from a different culture, different language, how do you make them feel? And, hey?
The tone of his voice. Maybe it was just blunt, like Toby, and it's like that's random.
Okay, we'll break now for a moment because according to the university rules, you are tired now because it's 1 hour. But what is it that I wanted to say? Okay, we'll work with this concept. So there is a text. Doesn't matter whether it's written or whether it's spoken. The problem is to actually make people understand or help students understand why those words know other words. All right? So we explain. Someone suggested. And what did you say? What was it? Make them intonation. So our intonation of the voice of a teacher. What else was suggested? Yeah. A what? Props. Whatever. That's fine. I don't mind any of them. Who's doing all of that? How English, isn't it? How Australian? How we actually say in the curriculum it should be student oriented. It should be student generated. We should be doing all of that, enabling students to actually be in control and learn about their own learning and develop tools for them to think about it and how they actually stay in control. We work our guts out. Not only that, we explain according to the way we perceive problem. We think that intonation change will help. We question according to, we interrogate, right? I'm questioning you and you're not actually riveting here. You're not alive. You're not actually killing Toby. You're kind of sitting here thinking, oh my God, I hope it's going somewhere, right? And then props is another sort of a lot of exercise on the part of the teacher. So we have two problems here. The first one is everything about the teacher. And I told you, I think in the lesson one, in the lecture one, when I saw you, but when someone produces an abstract, and I don't care about their title, could be professor, there was an associate professor from somewhere who came to our university, wanted to give a talk, presentation, and he said he will get children do this. And I didn't go. I don't want to know. I don't want to know his story. His language is already offensive. I mean, you as a student, I will actually, if you write in your assignments, I will get kids do this, I will tell you not to do that. And I'm telling you that now. So as soon as you do this, even if you write it, watch what you're doing. We want our children to be aware of their own learning. You have to be aware of your own learning as well, and aware of your actions. That's what we are paid for. We have to be aware of what we're doing. So if you say, I'll get them do this, I'll make them do this, I'll, whatever, watch that language. So here it's all about I'll make children listen to my explanations. I will make them to actually see the differences. I will, question them. I'll give them props. It's a lot of.
Sorry, just from me, the crux was I had interpreted your question that the children would select a prop that connects.
Okay, so the children. That's a good.
To them.
Okay, so the children.
If you were trying to teach a particular word to a child, you would ask the child to go and find an object.
How do you think the child will feel when you ask them to pick up a prop? Someone like Ania Lian, okay, the personality I had, I'm all over the classroom. I love the teacher, doesn't matter what teacher it is, I love them unconditionally, right? So I love them all. I am active. I dominate the class. I dominate the group. I even now the project which I'm doing, I'm working very hard to actually step back because you don't learn from people when you dominate, right? So that's the energy which is go, go, go. It's a good energy, but you need to actually be aware also of that so you don't actually lose. You always gain as a result. How does it? But you have other children in classroom, like my friends. You ask them to choose the prop, they run the other way. 5-year-olds cooperate with teachers because they love their teachers unconditionally. And I'm not sure whether all of them, I don't know. But it's something to think about. But what I know from the literature, that a lot of people from different countries will find it terrifying. Right? Because we again ask, I'm connected to a family in Canberra. They, for generations, do homeschooling, right? And they're very successful people in business. They got Telstra awards. One of the girls, since she was 22, didn't have to work. But it's not like they just business people. They do amazing things, right? Amazing things. But one of the principles that this woman taught me was we always ask children to do things. Ask children to do the emotion she puts in because she's like that, right? Full on. We leave them dry, she says. We never actually create situations that they give. And kids, she says, want to give. She had 4 of hers, and her kids have plenty. I mean, the family was such that they saw how wonderful it is to have many kids. So all her kids have many kids. So she's got like 10 grandchildren by now, right? So I don't know how, and obviously she's not 80. So already she's got 10 of them. I don't know what the numbers, how much the numbers will grow. The point is there was a positive experience of a family. And she would say children want to give. But we don't give them, we don't create a space. We ask, 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 ask. And where's the room for them? I mean, you've seen children? Look what I have. Oh, Anya, I waited for you. I gave you my bed. I go to Sydney. There's this Romanian family. They hardly have conditions to live because both kind of artists, right? And you can imagine how much people who are artists are paid here. So they do this and then the girl gives me her bedroom and she cleaned it and all that. Since she was since she was aware of the issue, but when I come to their house, I have to sleep somewhere, right? Since she actually put it together, she just gives and gives and gives. So, right? So that's the first thing that I wanted to make before you go for a break. And another one is, and continuously looking at the same page. Continuously. I mean, if you know about the world, you know because you looked here and you looked there. You've experienced this and you've experienced that. When we looked at Toby, we got it from the toy shop. We got it from home situations. It's a kind of diminutive. We got from different sources of knowledge how to actually, what fits under the name Toby, what makes it funny. And especially in connection with the devil. Right? So we connected experiences from life, from different contexts. We weren't looking just what one text, and from it we got the answer, right? We just looked everywhere in our heads to find the connections that we make with the word Toby, especially in connection with devil, how they contrast. Whereas in classrooms, typically one book and the teacher explaining, one book and the teacher explaining, one book and the teacher till the cows come home. And just the last sentence before we break is, remember, was it last week or week before I showed you the brain? Remember, of the person who reads and of the person who is on the internet, right? And the person who has no idea how to work with the internet and sees a text and sees the web page, as a text, as a page, very little of their brain gets activated because they don't actually do exploration. What they do, they just see a text. Whereas someone like us, we don't see a web page as a text. We see it as many connections connected, and we can click here, we can go there, we can explore some more, we can go to YouTube, we can go somewhere and check some blogs, we can go maybe to the library and follow up and all of that, right? We've got that 3D world when we look at the web page. And the brain activates accordingly, right? The brain is like half of the brain is lit up. So what happens? The internet, when we have possibilities to explore, the brain lights up, brings these connections, makes these connections available. When we don't explore, we just look things in a 2-dimension, like a text on the page. It's okay, but there's nowhere to go. We have this book, and we continuously think that the meaning will come from these words, or maybe from our explanation, maybe from some other sort of exercises. But there's no exploration. And a person like him or me or like my mother really want to know how they kind of get it from their Christian belief, like my mother, what Catholic, what the devil means. But Toby, she has no idea. Well, let's have a look. Let's have a look. How about exploring? You see, the word didn't come up. Exploring frames of reference in relation to Toby. Where would we look? Right. But as you said somewhere, and this is the thing, you gave me actually a golden nugget here. What you said is know your children and know, what did you say? What these words might mean, right? Or whatever. The point is, how do you go beyond that? They don't come to the class to reinforce what they know. How do you stretch them? Looking continuously at one text, continuously explaining, right? We'll go there after the break. But that's the thing. The question is, how do we stretch them? Knowing them, I could give a lecture about it, what it means to know your students. But the point is, you don't want to frame them. What you want to stretch them. So you think you kind of have an idea maybe about the cultural diversity. You also have a curriculum in your mind. And what you're thinking now is, how can I make them feel Toby in relation to devil? How can I, what can I actually put in play, in conversation here for them to explore, to grow a bigger head? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to walk out with a mega head. All right, let's have a break for a moment. Thank you. It does, doesn't it? Feels like that.